Lamar's been tweeting about his situation publicly, kind of answering a lot of the questions that people and pundits are maybe throwing out there about Lamar Jackson. And he said, I don't remember me sitting out on my guys week 1 versus Jets to week 12 versus the Broncos. How come all of a sudden I sit out because of money in which I could have got hurt at any time within that time frame? When we know the Super Bowl been on my mind since April 2018, obviously when he got drafted. Let's get real. I'd rather have 100% PCL than go out there and play horrible, forcing myself to put my guys in a bad situation. Now that's selfish to me, which he would also probably get cooked for being washed if he was to go out there and play completely unhealthy. So what he was alluding to is, so for 12 weeks, I was not playing. I was not thinking about money. Like, where do we draw the line here? Kind of poking holes in some theories that have been said about Lamar, both by, I think, pundits and also fans of teams that don't necessarily want their team to spend whatever amount of money that has not been confirmed publicly yet to get Lamar Jackson there. AJ, do you enjoy this tactic from Lamar? I feel like getting his version of events out there and his thoughts out there is a good thing, especially because he's representing himself, and it's literally him versus the NFL right now almost when it comes to media and punditry and all of that type of stuff, AJ.
Yeah, I love that he's coming out and trying to be more vocal with this, because perception becomes reality. If you don't, he's in a weird spot, because if he's quiet and doesn't say anything, just goes about his business, people are just going to say crazy
all these
things.
Are true.
Yeah, and then people assume it's true. So, and then you come out and talk, yeah, maybe it helps with some people. The good thing is Lamar seems to not care too much about what everything else is going on around him. He wants to play football. He wants to work it out. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'm glad he's talking.
To your last point, though, I think that's what we're thinking, though. Like all the stuff that he has to do, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Because he has nobody working for him right now. You know?
Because normally, couldn't you have, if you had an agent, they'd be calling Shefty and Ian, be like, hey, they put these stories out, and Florio, all these different people, Schultze, you could call them and put things out that you're thinking or that's possibly the truth instead of whatever other people say.
Go ahead, Pac.
Yeah, I agree with you too, and we should know the number. Like, I think he said something really good. Mike said something really good earlier. I would put out the number that they offered.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Because nobody knows the number. We all sit like, what is the number? All right, you saying it's not 220 or 230.
Florio.
You saying it's not Florio. You saying it's not 200. Tell us what they offer and tell us a ballpark range, I would say. I don't know, because right now we don't know. Everybody's assuming like he wants 230. He wants the whole thing guaranteed. Of course, nobody want to sign a per game, $1 million per game. That means I got every game I play, I get $1 million. That's not guaranteed money.
Conversation of every contract is guaranteed money. That is literally that negotiation. This virtually practically guaranteed. You heard Florio talk about it. He's like, it's pretty much coming. It just got to wait a year. It's like, well, then pretty much should come now is how the player is always going to think about it. But what Florio was saying is like, all we've heard is Baltimore Ravens leaks of what the contract offer was. 133, another 80, this. If he had an agent, this is another thing that Florio is basically saying. If he had an agent, his reasoning on why he didn't accept the deal would be out there. Like, hey, this is it. This particular thing was in there that I didn't like. Just at least by somebody that has some sort of platform in sports. It's almost like a PR battle at this point, because the only information that other teams can go from, if they're not talking directly to Lamar, is the public information that's coming through the insiders. Do you know how many team executives utilize these insiders for information about what's going on in all these different places? They're working all the time. That's why these insiders have the job that they have, AJ.
Yeah, that's why it also seems like a job I would never want to have, because they're never off the clock. Not only are they always trying to break stories and get everything, but they're, no matter what, there's never a day off. They're always gathering information if they're good at their job. And that's what these guys that we see breaking stories all the time and leaking things, not leaking, but letting us know kind of what's happening. Like, they're just never off the clock. They're always on it. And those execs use these people very, it's precisely. They use them when they need them.
What did JJ say? If you're hearing anything right now, there's a reason you're hearing it.
Yep.
It's like that's the type of shit we're talking about behind the scenes, especially when we're talking about a couple $100 million guaranteed. Why not? Why not at least try to, get a little bit of assistance if it's not working out? But once again, he could still sign a deal that is very huge with a lot of guaranteed money. We still have time for that to happen. There's a lot of speculation on his business sense, because a lot of the things that are happening aren't necessarily what normally happen in these situations. And a lot of us are talking about it as if, like, who knows if this should be happening? 'Cause we don't know. But there's a chance he still gets a deal done.
Yeah.
And we have to remember that. We hope that's the case. And I think that's all any of us are kind of wishing for.
With what Arthur Blank said about, like, I don't think there's a way that he can play the same way for 6 to 7 years. Do you think there's any thought that this might be a yearly thing too? Like, he might be looking for a 6-year deal and the best they're offering is like a 4-year deal because of his play?
I think the 6-year deal just ups the guaranteed money to a place in which it can be. I think 5 years, 6 years is only there for that. I think per year, potentially a lot easier. But once again, that's a conversation that has to happen with a bunch of teams to make kind of happen. This is what Arthur Blank said at the league meetings. Falcons owner Arthur Blank said Tuesday, Lamar Jackson's situation is very different from Deshaun Watson's last year. I'd say. Different player, different time. You have a winner in Jackson, an MVP in the league. There's no question he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Okay. So remember, he was in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. He wasn't in as much as the Cleveland Browns were. So everybody's saying just because the Falcons were in it, they should be in it as much as the Browns were. Remember, they backed off when the Browns said $230 million guaranteed. More from Arthur Blank, the founder of Home Depot, I believe, on Jackson. Looking at it objectively, I'd say there's some concern over how long he can play his style of game. Hopefully a long time. But he's missed 5-6 games each of the last 2 years. Each game counts as a lot in our business, which is a very real stat, especially at that position. That's from Josh Kendall, Josh the Athletic. This guy writes the shit out some words.
Hey, Josh.
Thank you for reporting that. Joining us now is a man who might have some answers about what teams are thinking, more specifically what Arthur Blank just said. He's been a GM in the league. He's been a consultant in the league. He's been a part of 3 Super Bowls. He's an author, a speaker, a legend. Host of the Lombardi Line and the GM Shuffle, writer for the Daily Coach, which I still receive every single morning, an email blast, an absolute icon, Michael Lombardi.
Hello, Pat. How are you? Nice to see everybody. I appreciate it. The Arthur Blank commentary was, to me, no one followed up with the question. No one asked Arthur Blank, like, why is this year different? The reason that Deshaun Watson's not an Atlanta Falcon is because of the guaranteed contract. The Cleveland, remember, Cleveland was told they're out. And the way they got back in was when they guaranteed all that money, or else he was going to be a Falcon. Everybody in Atlanta thought that. So for Blank to say that this is different than last year, it's ridiculous because he doesn't have a quarterback. He's in the NFC. There's no quarterbacks in the NFC. There's Jalen Hurts. There's Jared Goff. There's Kirk. There's Prescott. You could shift the balance of power with one move. And this rhetoric, well, we wanted to have a young quarterback. Last year you didn't want a young quarterback. You wanted to pay one. Like, it makes no sense to me how these NFC teams are not after Lamar Jackson. And I thought his commentary was ridiculous in the sense that you were willing to pay a guy who had a tremendous off-the-field problems, but now who was going to miss 12 games. You talk durability. He was going to miss 12 games, or at least. Remember, we were all guessing last year.
Assumed a year.
Yeah, a year. That didn't bother him last year, but now durability bothers him this year. To me, he's talking out of both sides. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense.
Why do you think they're doing that? Because they were one of the teams that tweeted from all of their insiders, pretty much, all the insiders that have a connection, like the Atlanta Falcons are not interested in Lamar Jackson. And yesterday, before Arthur Blank even spoke about the situation, they made it very publicly, Desmond Ridder is the starter, even though Heineke's down there. Why do you think it is? Do you think this is obviously everybody not wanting to give him the guaranteed contract? And do we even know if that's what he wants? And how often do you think he's talking to these teams?
I think a lot of this, and I know Lamar tweets stuff out, and I know Lamar feels very comfortable with his position, but I think a lot of the problems in this, he doesn't have an agent. He doesn't have a buffer. He doesn't have somebody to help him along here. He doesn't have somebody who's able to put his spin of the story out or talk to teams. So all we hear is a narrative that's not an accurate narrative. So for me, I think it hurts him. Look, he sat in that green room for 31 picks. He was a better collegiate player than Trey Lance ever was. Trey Lance went third. He sat in that room because he didn't have an agent. He didn't have somebody promoting him, somebody helping him. I think it's really been a deterrent to not have that. I think it's a problem.